If you like Storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
I still remember the sound of the door that night, the faint creak that split the silence like a confession. She came home past midnight, her perfume mixing with the faint smell of whiskey in the air. I was sitting there on the couch, the TV on mute, watching the blue glow flicker across the empty room. When I saw her, I didn't feel anger, not at first. Just distance. The kind that doesn't happen overnight, but builds slowly, like rot beneath paint. "You're late," I said, quietly. Not accusing. Not questioning. Just stating a fact, and that was enough to make her smile tremble. She said something about the party running late. Music. Friends. Laughter. But the way she said it, her voice carried a different kind of tune. One I hadn't heard in months, light, careless, alive. When she turned away to hang her coat, I noticed the shimmer on her wrist. A faint smear of glitter, the kind she never wore for me. That's when I knew. I'd seen the picture earlier, her laughing with some man, his hand resting too comfortably on her arm. Nothing explicit, but intimacy doesn't need to scream to be real. Sometimes it just whispers in the small details, the way eyes meet, the way guilt hides behind smiles. I didn't ask questions. I didn't shout. I just sat there, holding my glass of whiskey, and realized something cruelly poetic. The woman I loved had already left me long before she stepped out that door. And for the first time, silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like proof. I didn't sleep that night. The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by everything left unsaid. Every tick of the clock reminded me of conversations we stopped having, touches that had turned into obligations. She went upstairs, probably thinking I'd explode, shout, demand explanations. But I didn't. Because shouting wouldn't bring back what was already gone. Instead, I poured another glass of whiskey and sat there, watching the reflection of the hallway light on the floorboards. That faint shimmer reminded me of how fragile everything had become. One step, one lie, and the whole thing cracked. I thought about all the times I blamed myself for being too quiet, too busy, too predictable. Maybe I had become a background character in my own marriage. But that night, I realized something. I wasn't the one who disappeared. I just stopped being seen. When morning came, she was still asleep upstairs. I made coffee, the way I always did, black, strong, steady. Then I left. Not out of anger, but clarity. I needed air, distance, silence that didn't taste like betrayal. She texted later, "Where are you?" I replied, "I just needed space." Space, that word we'd been living in long before I said it aloud. It's strange how betrayal doesn't break you all at once. It unravels you slowly, quietly, until you're no longer who you were. But somewhere in that unraveling, I felt something else, a pulse. A spark I hadn't felt in years. Maybe pain isn't the end. Maybe it's the invitation to start over. And as the sun rose, I decided if she could find life in someone else, then I would find mine again, without her. Days turned into weeks. The house grew quieter, but inside me, something began to move again. Pain has a strange way of forcing you to see not her, not them, but yourself. At first, I tried to fix things. I stayed polite, detached, predictable, the man she thought she wanted back. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw nothing but pity and guilt. That was the moment I stopped waiting for her to love me again. I started waking up earlier, running before sunrise, letting the cold air carve new breath into my lungs. I signed up for work projects I used to decline. I began reading again, books about solitude, growth, forgiveness. I stopped asking why her, and started asking what now. And slowly, my reflection changed. The man staring back at me no longer looked broken. Just quieter. Sharper. Whole. She noticed it too. I could feel it in the way her eyes lingered when I spoke, the way her voice softened when she said my name. Maybe she thought I was pretending, a phase, a mask. But I wasn't pretending. I was evolving. I didn't post revenge. I didn't seek validation. I just lived. And somehow, that became the loudest response I could ever give. The silence that once felt heavy now felt like armor. She had her secret night. Now, I had mine, a quiet rebirth under the same roof, where she couldn't reach me anymore. And the most haunting thing? She began to miss me, while I was still there. A month passed before I moved out. No fights. No slammed doors. Just quiet decisions made in the spaces between our silences. I left a note on the counter. I hope you find whatever it is you're still searching for. No accusations. No bitterness. Only truth. People think revenge means fire and chaos. But mine came softly. Through peace, through distance, through becoming someone she could no longer reach. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I worked harder. I dressed sharper. I started smiling again, not because I wanted to show her what she lost, but because I finally remembered what it felt like to live for me. Months later, we met again, not planned, just one of those accidents life seems to enjoy orchestrating. She was sitting alone in a cafe, the same one we used to visit when things were still good. I almost walked past, but she looked up. Her eyes widened, then softened. "Daniel," she whispered. My name sounded like a memory she wasn't ready to let go of. We talked for a while, small talk at first, then silence again. She looked at me, searching for something familiar. But the man she remembered was gone. I saw the realization cross her face, the quiet panic when she understood I had healed without her. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You seem different," she said softly. "I am," I replied. And in that moment, she finally understood what I meant. I didn't need revenge. I had outgrown her. After that day in the cafe, she texted me a few times, small, polite messages that didn't ask for much but said everything between the lines. "How have you been? You looked good. I miss talking to you." I replied once, brief, kind, detached. Then I stopped. Because sometimes silence says what words never could. I heard later from a mutual friend that she wasn't doing well. Her laughter had lost its ease. The people she used to surround herself with, the ones who made her feel alive, had quietly drifted away. Maybe that's what happens when the thrill fades and reality settles in. You realize too late that attention isn't affection, and validation isn't love. As for me, life didn't suddenly become perfect, it just became mine again. I traveled. I worked on projects I once feared to start. I met people who didn't ask about my past but saw who I was now. And one day, I looked in the mirror and saw peace staring back. No anger. No bitterness. Just quiet strength, the kind that comes after surviving yourself. Sometimes at night, I still hear the creak of that old door in my mind. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It just reminds me of where I stopped waiting and started living. I think about her sometimes, not with longing, not with hate, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Because losing her forced me to find the parts of myself I'd forgotten. She wanted to feel alive again. And in doing so, she gave me the same gift, just not the way she intended. One evening, months later, I saw her again, from a distance this time. She was walking alone, head down, scrolling through her phone. For a second, her eyes lifted and met mine. Recognition. Regret. A faint, sad smile. I nodded, not out of pride, but closure. She once told me silence scared her. That she needed noise, music, laughter, attention, to feel alive. But now, as I walked away, I realized the truth. Silence wasn't the absence of love. It was the echo of everything real that she could no longer touch. And that was my revenge, not a wound, not a victory shouted into the world, but a calm truth whispered only to myself. She lost me. I found me. And in that quiet balance, the universe finally felt right again.